In the year 2137, the galaxy stood on the precipice of a new era. Humanity had spread far beyond Earth, colonizing planets, moons, and space stations scattered across the stars. With this expansion came remarkable technological advancements, making once impossible dreams a reality. But progress had a dark side, and with it came the development of new, terrifying forms of warfare. Among these were the hydro-weapons, the brainchild of the Orion Corporation, a corporate giant that had grown to rival even the most powerful planetary governments. Hydro-weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of relying on conventional explosives or energy-based technology, these weapons harnessed the destructive potential of hyper-compressed water molecules. At first glance, the concept seemed simple, almost benign. After all, water was a symbol of life, not destruction. But Orion Corporation had found a way to turn this essential resource into a tool of unimaginable devastation. By compressing water molecules to extreme densities and then releasing them in a controlled explosion, the hydro weapons could unleash a torrent of energy capable of cutting through the strongest materials, vaporizing entire cities, or even splitting planets' crusts. The demonstration of the first hydro weapon, known as the Poseidon event, was a spectacle that shook the galaxy to its core. A once thriving planet, Eden 9, was chosen as the target. Within moments, its vast oceans, lush forests, and sprawling cities were reduced to nothing more than a barren wasteland. The entire planet was wiped out in an instant, leaving only a shattered husk where life had once thrived. The message was clear. Orion Corporation now held the ultimate power, and anyone who dared to oppose them would face total annihilation. The galaxy fell into a state of fear and submission. No one could stand against Orion's might. No one dared to try. Nations that had once prided themselves on their independence and military prowess now bowed before the corporation. Even the most powerful empires, with fleets of starships and armies numbering in the billions, found themselves at the mercy of the hydro weapons. Diplomacy became irrelevant, replaced by a new order dictated by the whims of Orion's executives. In the years that followed, the hydro weapons became synonymous with fear. The mere mention of them was enough to quell any thoughts of rebellion or resistance. The galaxy entered an era of uneasy peace, where the iron grip of Orion Corporation stifled any hope of freedom. People whispered in the shadows, dreaming of a time when they could live without the constant threat of obliteration hanging over their heads. But for most, these dreams were just that, dreams. However, in the far reaches of the galaxy, hidden from the all-seeing eyes of Orion, there were those who refused to succumb to fear. On the icy moon of Ganymede, a group of scientists had begun to uncover something extraordinary. Something that could potentially turn the galaxy's greatest nightmare into its greatest hope. Dr. Alara Quinn was not a name known to many, but those who did know her spoke of a mind unmatched in brilliance and a spirit unbroken by the harsh realities of the galaxy. She had chosen the remote moon of Ganymede for her research precisely because of its isolation. Far from the political machinations and corporate interests that dominated the galaxy, Ganymede provided the perfect environment for pure, undisturbed scientific exploration. For years, Dr. Quinn and her small team of dedicated scientists had been studying the unique properties of Ganymede's subsurface oceans. These oceans, hidden beneath miles of ice, were thought to be composed of water with a composition unlike anything found elsewhere in the galaxy. But what they discovered went beyond their wildest expectations. The water on Ganymede contained an element not listed on any known periodic table. At first, this discovery puzzled the team. The element, which they dubbed xenotrium, had a molecular structure that defied conventional understanding. It was incredibly reactive, yet stable, with properties that seemed almost too good to be true. As the team delved deeper into their research, they realized that xenotrium, when introduced into the human body, had profound effects. Initial experiments showed that small doses of water containing xenotrium enhanced the physical and cognitive abilities of the test subjects. Strength, reflexes, and endurance were all significantly boosted, while the subjects' mental faculties, memory, problem-solving, creativity, soared to new heights. More astonishing was the fact that these enhancements weren't temporary. The water created a symbiotic relationship with the human body, permanently altering it at the cellular level. As the cells absorbed the xenotrium, they became stronger, more resilient, and more adaptable. The scientists had stumbled upon a potential revolution, not just in human potential, but in the very fabric of what it meant to be human. Dr. Quinn quickly grasped the implications of their discovery. The galaxy was under the thumb of Orion Corporation and their hydro weapons. But what if there was a way to counteract that power? What if humans could become strong enough, fast enough, smart enough to resist the terror that had gripped the galaxy for so long? The team conducted more tests, this time on themselves. The results were even more profound than they had anticipated. Dr. Quinn herself experienced the transformation, feeling her body and mind reach levels she had never thought possible. She knew then that they had to share this discovery, but they had to be careful. Orion Corporation would stop at nothing to maintain their monopoly on power, and if they learned about the Ganymede water, they would surely destroy it, and anyone who knew of its existence. Dr. Quinn and her team began to reach out discreetly to trusted allies, forming the beginnings of what would become the Aqua Sentinels. This underground network of scientists, soldiers, and civilians would be the key to spreading the word and preparing for the inevitable clash with Orion Corporation. They knew they couldn't take on Orion head-on, but with the Ganymede water, they didn't need to. They just needed to be smart, fast, and prepared. The first step was to test the Ganymede water on a broader scale. Volunteers were recruited from the ranks of those who had lost everything to Orion's tyranny. These were people with nothing left to lose, willing to risk everything for a chance at freedom. As the volunteers began to drink the Ganymede water, their transformations mirrored those of the scientists. They became stronger, faster, and more intelligent than any human before them. They became the first generation of Aqua Sentinels. With their newfound abilities, the Aqua Sentinels began to plan their resistance. Their goal was not to destroy Orion Corporation outright. That would be impossible. Instead, they aimed to disrupt the production of hydro weapons, to weaken the corporation from within, and to show the galaxy that Orion's power was not absolute. It was a bold plan, but they were ready to see it through. The galaxy was a vast and complex place, with countless star systems and untold billions of people living under the shadow of Orion Corporation's tyranny. For years, the corporation had ruled with an iron fist, using the threat of the hydro weapons to keep entire worlds in line. But the rise of the Aqua Sentinels signaled the beginning of a new era, one where fear was no longer the only currency of power. The Aqua Sentinels operated in the shadows, striking at the heart of Orion's operations with precision and stealth. They targeted the production facilities of the hydro weapons, sabotaging critical infrastructure and stealing valuable intel. Every mission was a calculated risk, but with the enhanced abilities granted by the Ganymede water, the Sentinels quickly became a force to be reckoned with. Their successes were not just military victories, they were symbols of hope. Each strike against Orion was a message to the galaxy. The corporation was not invincible, and resistance was not futile. The once subdued whispers of rebellion began to grow louder, spreading from planet to planet, moon to moon, as more and more people began to believe that liberation was possible. Dr. Quinn and the core leadership of the Aqua Sentinels knew that they were playing a dangerous game. Orion Corporation had resources beyond comprehension, and it was only a matter of time before they fully realized the threat posed by the Sentinels. The Sentinels had to stay one step ahead, always moving, always adapting. But Orion Corporation was not blind. Their vast network of spies and informants eventually caught wind of the Aqua Sentinels' activities. The reports were initially dismissed as exaggerations or isolated incidents, but as the evidence mounted, it became clear that something serious was afoot. The corporation's upper echelons were furious. How had these rebels gained such power? And more importantly, where had they gotten it from? A massive manhunt was launched to root out the Aqua Sentinels. Orion's forces scoured the galaxy, searching for any trace of the resistance. But the Sentinels were elusive, always striking where they were least expected and then disappearing into the vastness of space. For every Sentinel captured or killed, two more seemed to rise in their place. Despite their successes, the Sentinels knew they were living on borrowed time. Orion's might was too great to withstand forever. Dr. Quinn, now a leader not just in science but in strategy, decided it was time to take a more decisive step. They would force a confrontation, one that would either break Orion's grip on the galaxy or end the Aqua Sentinels once and for all. The target was Europa, a moon of Jupiter and one of the most heavily fortified locations in the galaxy. Europa was home to Orion's central command for the entire Sol system, as well as the primary production facilities for the hydro weapons. It was a fortress, protected by the most advanced defense systems and the deadliest armaments in existence. But Dr. Quinn had a plan. She knew that attacking Europa directly would be suicide. Instead, they would lure Orion's fleet away, drawing them into a trap. The Sentinels had gathered enough intel to know that Orion was preparing to use one of their most powerful hydro weapons in a demonstration of force, an event meant to remind the galaxy of their dominance. This was the moment the Sentinels had been waiting for. The plan was audacious, almost reckless, but the Sentinels were ready. They had trained tirelessly, pushing their enhanced bodies and minds to the limits. They knew that this could be their final mission, but they were willing to make that sacrifice for the chance to free the galaxy from Orion's tyranny. The trap was set, and the Sentinels moved into position. They had rigged a series of decoy targets that would mimic the energy signatures of a significant resistance force, drawing Orion's attention. As expected, Orion took the bait. Their fleet mobilized, leaving Europa's defenses weakened. The Sentinels launched their attack with surgical precision. Small teams infiltrated Europa's defenses, disabling key systems and planting explosives in critical locations. Meanwhile, the main force engaged Orion's fleet, using their enhanced abilities to outmaneuver and outfight the larger, more heavily armed ships. The battle raged across the moon's surface and in the space above it. The Sentinels fought with a ferocity that caught Orion's forces off guard. They were no longer just rebels. They were an army, fighting not just for survival but for victory. The final confrontation was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The skies over Europa burned with the fires of battle as the Aqua Sentinels and Orion's forces clashed in a fight to the death. Ships exploded in brilliant bursts of light, debris raining down onto the moon's icy surface. The very ground shook with the force of the conflict, as if the moon itself were protesting the violence being wrought upon it. Dr. Ilara Quinn, now a legend among the Aqua Sentinels, led the charge. She had become something more than human, her mind and body enhanced to levels that made her a match for any opponent. But she knew that this battle was not just about physical strength or strategy. It was about the will to fight for a future free from fear. As the battle reached its peak, the Aqua Sentinels unleashed their secret weapon, a new form of Ganymede water, further refined and enhanced. This water not only amplified their abilities, but also had the power to neutralize the hydro weapons. The Sentinels had discovered a way to reverse the effects of hypercompressed water, rendering Orion's most powerful weapons inert. Orion's forces, realizing that their greatest advantage had been taken from them, began to falter. The Sentinels pushed forward, taking out key command centers and disabling the remaining defenses. The once unstoppable hydro weapons were now useless, their power nullified by the very element they were built upon. In the final moments of the battle, Dr. Quinn confronted Orion Corporation's CEO, Vincent Thorne, in the heart of Europa's command center. Thorne was a man who had built his empire on fear and control, but now he faced the one thing he had never anticipated, the loss of that control. Thorne stood defiant, even as the battle turned against him. He was a tall, imposing figure, his eyes cold and calculating. But there was a flicker of uncertainty in those eyes as he faced Dr. Quinn, who had become the embodiment of the resistance. She was no longer just a scientist. She was the symbol of everything he had tried to crush. "You think you've won, Quinn?" Thorne sneered. "You think you can destroy everything I've built? You're nothing but a rebel, a fool." Dr. Quinn's gaze was steady, unyielding. "Your empire was built on fear, Thorne. But fear is not as powerful as you think. People will always find a way to fight back, and today they've found that way." Thorne laughed, a harsh, mirthless sound. "You're naive. The galaxy needs order, control. Without it, there's only chaos." And who decides what that order is? You? Dr. Quinn stepped closer, her voice cold. The hydro weapons were your tool to enforce that order, but now they're gone. The galaxy will decide its own fate, not you. For a moment there was silence. Then Thorne lunged, drawing a hidden weapon, but Quinn was faster. Enhanced by the Ganymede water, she disarmed him in an instant, the weapon clattering to the ground. She held him at arm's length, her grip iron-clad. "This is your last chance," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "Surrender and let the galaxy rebuild in peace, or we end this here and now." Thorne's eyes flashed with anger and desperation. He had always been the one in control, the one who decided who lived and who died. But now, with his empire crumbling around him, he realized that control had slipped through his fingers. For the first time in his life, he felt truly afraid. "Fine," he spat, defeated. "I surrender." With that, the battle was over. Orion Corporation's forces, leaderless and demoralized, laid down their arms. The Aqua Sentinels had won, not just the battle, but the future. The hydro weapons, once the galaxy's greatest terror, were no more. The Ganymede water was shared freely across the stars, its secrets given to all who needed it. The galaxy began to heal. The oppressive reign of Orion Corporation was replaced by a new era of cooperation and rebuilding. Worlds that had lived in fear for so long now had the chance to determine their own destinies. The Aqua Sentinels disbanded, their mission complete, but their legacy lived on. Dr. Elara Quinn returned to Ganymede, choosing to continue her research in peace. She had never sought power or fame. Her goal had always been knowledge and the betterment of humanity. The Ganymede water had given her and countless others the strength to fight for a better future, but now that future belonged to everyone. And so the story of the hydro weapons faded into history, while the legend of the Aqua Sentinels became a beacon of hope. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could rise above fear and oppression, turning what was once a weapon of destruction into a source of strength and renewal. The galaxy had been saved not by machines or weapons, but by the courage and determination of those who dared to dream of something better. And from that day forward, no one feared the hydro weapons, because the very essence of fear had been transformed into something far more powerful: hope.